It doesn't get better than this, boys. Wiz on Wiz.
Okay, so now you wanna make love to me. Girl, if you don't get the fuck from me, I know you thought we had something special, but you don't mean nothing to me. Girl, I'm sorry you not the one for me.
Alright, sorry about that, guys. I was just kind of screwing around. But, yo, guys, what is up? It is James. I am back from my short break from Wiz and the YouTubes. Kind of had to take a break after the Mythathon. I do apologize. I will try to strive to bring the daily uploads back. And I know I keep saying that, but I feel like I'm going to get back into the habit of daily uploading because I kind of need to for myself and for you guys. But mostly for myself because, you know, like when I first started the channel, I made it an utmost priority to daily upload. And as time went on, you know, like as we hit like 2.5, now 3K, now almost like 3.5K actually, I've kind of been lacking on the daily content, so I do apologize for that. But I do think in the next couple of days here I am going to start rolling out some daily content and then hopefully stick to that. So today we are doing a deck setup for the strategies that I showed you in the Madam Mythathon that just happened like last week. If you haven't seen that, then the link to that playlist will be down in the description. Definitely just suggest you go check it out. It was 7 straight videos of nothing but legendary myth PvP. Really good content, especially the grand finale and the first installment were really good. So if you haven't seen that, man, you're missing out. Link is in the description. So today, like I said, we are doing a deck and gear setup for legendary myth. So first, I thought we would start out with the offensive or attack, as I like to call it, legendary myth setup. So getting into it, we're gonna start off with the gear and then the deck setup. So for the hat, I run the Trixie hood. You can change this out with the Helm of the Ravenous Teeth, which is dropped from the House of Scales final boss, but I still would rather run the Trixie hood because it does give incoming, and I'll show you how all that plays together with the finalized stats. But for the offensive and the defensive, I run the Trixie hood. For the offensive and defensive, I still run the Trixie cape, which can be, I guess, swapped out with, again, a drop from the final boss in the House of Scales dungeon, the Ravenous Teeth garb. But you know, again, I like the extra resist, the extra accuracy. Yeah, it doesn't give any power pip percent, but you get a tad bit more health. You know, and it's pretty much the same thing except for the power pip. So it really, you know, it all comes down to what you want to run, really. But for my specific setup, and again, I'll show you why I run this setup, is because of the incoming and the health and the accuracy and whatnot. So that's the robe. I run the Glendemming boots for pretty much any setup for myth, just because it has decent damage, you know, decent block that you don't get on a lot of really good boots at legendary. Accuracy, power per percent. The only thing that the Glendemming boots don't really give is health, but I mean, I think that makes up for you know, in resist and whatnot. So 13 resist on boots for any level, pretty much. Oh no, not any level, but for level 50 and up, you know, it's pretty OP. So that's that. The wand I run specifically for the offensive setup is the Aquilin Secutor Lance, which gives 5 universal pierce, 45 universal block, 45 universal crit, 6 damage to myth and ice, and a very OP, if you can land it, especially with bubble up, Athena battle sight card. So I mean, it's pretty much like a 900 damage wand. Say if you have like an infoul up and a bubble, or like you like Rat Magician and then like wand off a tower because you're second, and they know they just seen that you use White Rat Magician, so they go for another tower thinking that you might go for a single hit, such as, you know, Medusa. You could wand off that and then get this May cast Athena, and it does absolute mass for just a wand hit, and you also get a tower back. So it's pretty much like if you didn't have a tower. So it's pretty much like if you didn't have a tower in between, you know, using White Rat Magician, just say for instance, and then wanding. Well, if you get the May cast, now you have a tower shield, and you just did 900 free damage. So I mean, if you have the pips after you wanted and got the Maycast, it's pretty much a free GG. You know, if I do say so myself, Myth is pretty OP under Bubble and the right stats. So, I mean, you know, Legendary Myth, definitely not a knockoff school. You know, I would like to think that every school is really good at Legendary. You just have to have the right gear and the right mindset and the right strategy, which really isn't all that hard to obtain. You know, most of it is just in getting the gear and whatnot. So that is the wand. The Athame is the Duelist Fatal Razor for the offensive setup. These are the jewels that I have on it, and if you aren't going to start out with this right away, even though it doesn't, you know, really take being a warlord or commander or whatever, then I do suggest buying a level 56 Athame from the bazaar. They're fairly cheap. Well, not fairly cheap, but they're pretty good for starting Athames. Or if you don't want to buy one of those, then you can always craft one from the guy standing next to the bridge in Sudreland. So that is the Athame. And the necklace. Obviously, you're going to want to run Life Mastery. You know, it's kind of self-explanatory for Myth because you don't have all that much health. Actually, I think Myth might have the lowest health, right next to Death and Fire for Legendary. So you're definitely going to want to be able to heal every now and then, even if you are running in, you know, and like an offensive setup. So that is that. The ring, I run the Stellar Signet. If you want to, you can run the Duelist Fatal Razor for level 60, but the only reason I run the Stellar is because, number one, the Fatal Razor lacks on power pip percent, and it also lacks on in and out, which I like to incorporate in my strategy. Again, I'll show you my final stats and the reason why I run the gear that I run. But even though this ring doesn't give like any damage or pierce, I still think it's better because 16 power pip percent is only going to get you about 81 or about like 80 in the end. So it's kind of important that you you know, choose your stats wisely, because if one is lacking, you know, if a vital stat is lacking, then it could cost you the match. But that is the ring. So the pet is pretty much up to your discretion. Really, my pet is a triple double with Fairy. The reason why Fairy is not really a fail in this situation, because in 2v2s, 3v3s, and 4v4s, and 1v1s really, because even if you're running an offensive Myth setup, a lot is going to be going on in the match. You know, you're constantly like putting out attacks or, you know, putting up defenses and whatnot, and there's a pretty good chance that somewhere in the mist your pet is going to heal. And that is another reason why I run, you know, gear that gives in and out, so that if my pet does decide to BS RNG, it could possibly save you the match. I mean, it's pretty good. A Fairy is like 600, 700 back, you know, off of like an RNG BS. So, I mean, the more the merrier, am I right? So that is my pet for offensive. My deck setup for offensive. Well, this is the TC setup. Feel free to make changes or pause and copy here. And this is my main deck setup. Now, if you do not have, actually, never mind. There's some quick changes that I need to make right here. Remove one frog, and let me see. I need to remove I think one Talos for the offensive, because you don't really need Talos all that much. And then just add 2 more tower shields. So this is the offensive setup. Basically, you aren't going to be needing stun blocks because, I mean, let's be honest, you're Myth. You have Medusa. They're going to be the ones that, you know, are going to be struggling to pull that stun block. Like, you know, where is it? Where is it? So tower shields, self-explanatory. Set shields, again, self-explanatory. Your enchants, vital. I would suggest some life dispels, even though your power percent chance isn't all that, or I don't know, it might be if you do change your setup a little bit from mine, but I would suggest at least 3 life dispels, because you don't want your opponent healing, because while Myth is pretty OP, you know, if you aren't able to kill him like 2 hits or 1 hit, you might start struggling in the match if your opponent does start to heal. So at least 3 life dispels. Some infections also never hurt. Some heals, you're going to want at least 3 fairies and 3 sprite. If not, then like maybe like 4 fairies and 3 sprites, or switch it up and go 3 fairies and 4 sprites. But you want the sprites so that if the opponent spams, light dispel or infection, then you can use a new pip with a sprite to get that infection off or that light dispel off, so that you can then heal whenever you need it, because Myth doesn't have again all that much health. So bubbles, you're going to want a lot of bubbles, at least 5, bare minimum 5. If you want to be cheeky, then go ahead and add 6, but it's really not necessary, because in that case you just might want to run like TC bubbles for like emergencies if like your opponent just keeps dooming and whatnot. So 6 bubbles, bare minimum, and you're going to want to have a bubble up in the meta. It's so freaking good, trust me, especially with my setup, because I'm running like 50 resist and like a crap ton of damage, so it's pretty good. At least 1 Cyclops, because, again, Myth's power pip percent really isn't all that good if you are running an offensive setup. So if you do fail pip and you do pull an enchant, and your opponent is within kill range, and you have infile up and you're under bubble, Cyclops can do mass. It can do around, like, I would say 700 to 900. If you get a crit, it's probably an assured GG if they're in the low health range. Earthquake is really good if you're fighting ices or deaths, because they do like to blade stack. So if you do pull your Earthquake, keep it in hand, and you might end up pissing off your opponent and winning the match. It's pretty dang good for blades, and also gets rid of minions, possibly both if they do have a minion up and are blade stacking. So just keep it in hand at all times, really. Frog is mainly for if your opponent has a tower shield up and a minion, or they just have a pretty good minion on the field and you need to do damage to the opponent and take out whatever minion they are using, then Frog would be your go-to. So 1 of each you at least want to have. If not, then take out the Cyclops and put in an extra Earthquake or Frog. Up to you, but at least 2 Medusas. The 0 pip minions are very good for getting off Myth sets or tower shields, and if you want, then you can put 3 in, but the bare minimum that you want to have in is 2, because you also want to make room for Talos. Talos is really, really good if you're running an offensive setup, because Talos likes to spam Hex and also blade you at times. So Talos can really be a godsend, and he's already kind of a god in mythology, so gotta have at least 2 of Talos. Minotaur are pretty good, have at least 2 of those. Blades, self-explanatory. Pigs kills, that's the motto. Orthrus is really good, but it's really situational, so you only want to have 1. 1 Shatter as well, it's also situational. If you pull it and it's a godsend, then use it. Again, 3 Infection, 1 Reshuffle, because it's really good. If you want, then remove something else from the main deck and put in 2, but really 1 is all you need, because Myth just really does mass if you're playing the meta right. And then 3 Weakness. If you aren't going to train into balance for weakness, then I would suggest putting in another like life set or like Legend Shield and another Volcanic Shield. And then I guess for the final card for the 3rd Infection that you aren't going to put in deck, I guess an extra reshuffle would work. But again, this is all up to you if you want to change it. But yeah, this is the offensive setup, so let's go ahead and run through the defensive setup real quick. One more thing, I kind of forgot to show you guys my overall setup, my bad. But we have that clean 80 damage for Myth, 50 Rezazel across the board, which, 80 damage, 50 resist for offensive Myth is pretty dang good. I can fizzle by 1, but it's not really that big a deal, because most of the time if you're going to be hitting, you're going to be hitting under infal. So not really a problem there too much. It might cost you, like a rare match, but really as long as you have like infal up, you're good. So critical is, it's RNG, but you have 28 with this setup that I have on. Block is 19%, and really all you want is like close to 20 or 21. Pierce is 14, so you're still doing a lot of damage with 80 damage. You know, 14 Pierce, it's a lot for Myth, especially at Legendary. You know, normally you'd be running like 9 or, you know, like, or maybe 12 with certain offensive setups, but if you can grab the specific wand that I have from the Immortals lore pack, then, I mean, your Pierce is going to be looking pretty dang nice. So if you can grab that, that's a steal. And then my healing in and out is 40% in and 20% out, which equates to a lot of really good satyrs. So now you kind of see why I run the Waterworks gear instead of the House of Scales gear, even with an offensive setup. It's because my satyrs still do mass if I need to heal, and I still have 80 damage and 14 pierce. So, I mean, still doing massive damage. So, and then my power pit percent again is 81. So overall, I mean, if you've seen the Mythathon, then you'll know that this setup is on God. But yeah, this is the offensive setup. All right, so I've gone ahead and switched over to the defensive setup, which was the setup that you might see if you go and watch the beginning of the Mythathon again. But nothing really has changed except for the wand. The wand has changed from the the lance to the staff of the flashing blades, and I'll show you why that is later on when I show you the overall stats. But that has changed. The theme, all the clothes, everything pretty much has stayed the same. The pet has changed to a double resist, war to fire, war to balance, fortified pet with socketed dealer. If you do not have a penguin, then like a moose or something works. Although I wouldn't suggest a moose for legendary myth, I would suggest a penguin or armament. But a moose does work. It's just really not the best pet to have for legendary myth, although a lot of legendary myths do have it. It's a pretty popular pet. Not really sure why it's not like the best in terms of, you know, what a pet could do for you in the meta and in the arena, but it does work. But I would suggest either a penguin, something that gives a myth blade, so like a myth beast, or again an armament, because this setup is pretty heavily reliant on blades and blade stacking to kill. So whatever can fortify, or not fortify, but amplify your attack is going to be really good for this setup. So for this setup, you're going to want the staff with the flashing blades changed, and then a defensive pet. Now I would suggest a ward to either fire or balance, or both is really best. You must have double resist on a pet, because that will bring your resist to 50. I highly suggest you put double resist on a pet and try to make the proof 10 if possible, and then a little bit of damage on the pet as well, never hurt. Also try to strive to put fortify on it, because that May cast will make your defensive setup complete. So this is my first, like my first pet that I would go for if I was going for like a regular ranked match, and then I have this pet for ices if I know that I'm getting an ice in a tournament, or if there are a lot of like legendary ices in ranked, then I might swap out for this ice ward pet right here. Both are really, really good. Ice can sometimes get that BS RNG, so I do have block on this pet in case, you know, I need to block that ice critical or whatever crit, because it is universal crit. So both are really situational, but I would still put a ward to either fire or balance. If you can only get one ward, then I would ward to balance, because I mean they're super deadly and you really need it. Even from first, there's still a threat, so you want to have some kind of like ward to them. So that is my advice for a pet. My deck I didn't show, but I use the epic deck for both setups. I just switch around the deck setups. So but I use the epic deck. You can craft this from the recipe vendor in the floating lands. So that is that. And then the deck setup has changed mildly. You do see less attacks, and the reason for that is the main purpose of this deck is to be a control deck. So you want to pull, you know, what you want to use and basically get a grounding for your strategy before you actually start going in and hitting and whatnot. So you do see like 3 light spells, you know, 3 weakness, 3 infection. Not many hits, because you want to conserve your hits in your hand for later for strategizing and whatnot. You do see like 4 Talos, 5 blades, because you do want to have a blade on pretty much at all times in a match, unless you're trying to, like, you know, weakness and infection spam and life spell spam and then hit. But you still want to have like mass blades in hand, and it really helps if you do have like an armament pet, because then you can start enchanting some of these blades so that they aren't the same thing. But a lot of blades is really good. So this is the defense setup for defense myth, and here is the slightly changed TC setup. Now, one thing that I want to explain for the TC defense setup is that I do have some unenchanted Keeper of the Flames. Now, I do encourage you to craft Keepers so that these, you know, don't just do 400, because I didn't craft it on Madam Myth. I just kind of bought these from the bazaar. But the reason why these are good, even if you don't have Keeper trained, is because they aren't really for like attacking purposes. Mainly, I use Keeper shortly after I use Basilisk, because then they like to heal spam and, you know, tower shield spam, set to myth. So I do like to Keeper of the Flame, sometimes like a set shield off or a tower shield off, and it does like base through a tower pretty much if you're under a bubble. And then you also have that trap that it puts on afterwards, so your overtime is also doing 25% more, plus the base damage that you just did through their tower shield, and then the last tick should eventually kill them or put them within kill range with another Keeper or Troll. So overall, both setups pretty good, if I do say so myself. So leave a like on this video if this helped you at all, interested you at all in Legendary Myth, and share this video with a friend so that they might be interested in Legendary Myth, level 60 Myth, that is, to be exact. And that is going to do it for this video, guys. I will have a video coming out tomorrow talking about some more stuff. Now that the Mythathon is over, I do want to touch upon some more serious things in Wiz soon. And this monstrology stuff I want to talk about a little bit as well. So that is all to come in the near future. But for now, guys, it's going to be James giving you all the sign out. I will see you guys next time. Peace!